Let's see. Let me. All right. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I did something messed up.
When I went back, I could not find your announcement. Did you?
No, I
That
messed
was
it
that
up.
was on Facebook, wasn't it? When you advertised it
No,
earlier.
yeah, it was YouTube. I messed it up. There probably won't be anybody. Everybody's somewhere else now. Ah, crap. I don't know how to
Uh,
contact. It sounds good, Misty. We're what I did. I accidentally turned the other one off, and so there's nobody in the chat. I don't know how to let everybody know, but we'll just go ahead. Okay, thank you. We'll thank goodness for her because I don't know. She told me like because she knows what can cause all the feedback and everything. She said if me or you either one is too close to which I was I was too close to this one my tablet here that was showing. I
okay.
Yeah, that's what I did. I made a new link. Thank you, Misty.
Hey, Misty.
Yeah, she's oh man. Well, we can still be all right because we got some stuff to talk about. She said, "Yes, sir." Oh my god, I'm not smart enough for this.
Hey, I wanted to ask Misty something about the hunter safety thing. Hi, Misty.
Yeah,
Um, did you uh, did you ever live in Marshall County,
I don't think she
Chapel
did.
Hill, or Lewisburg area?
I don't think she did. She's one of them East Tennessee girls. She,
Okay.
I think she got your name mixed up with somebody else's. Oh me,
Uh,
I don't understand what I did wrong because I set this up Streamyard and then um I don't know. All right, so this is a different Don. It's, we getting old.
okay. I mean, what county was that in, Misty?
I think she's inviting folks. Thank you, thank you, Jesse Underwood. Great, we're back. It's okay. No one is perfect on this planet. I spent so much time on it today too. Jefferson County.
Jefferson. Okay.
I've got tomorrow off, so I'm gonna dig into this a little more. So for people that go back and watch this, we've got Don. I'll try this again. We got Don Odum. He's been on a few shows. We started talking about I don't even know where this started at our store, and a lot of things that we used to discuss that he would bring up actually has has come true in the last 20 years. Hey, Richard, thank y'all for coming back. And so I didn't think he. It was hard to wrap my head around some things. I've had to go through this in a way to where he knows he'll laugh about this, but I do it all the time. He'll be telling me something, and after like 3 hours, I'm like, Don, you got to stop. My head's full. I'm not. I know I'm not going to process any of this. I've got to get back and let it, you know. And he'll tell you sometimes it may be months, and it'll finally connect. And so
And
with
we covered just about every topic under the sun at one time or another, I think.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
we're all interested in the Bigfoot phenomenon and Jonathan. Are you kin to Jonathan Odom? No, I think that is that the guy from Alabama
Uh,
because somebody asked me that.
I do have some relatives down in the Well, they were in Birmingham. It was my grandfather's older brother, and that's been years ago. But I don't know of any of them at this point in time. Uh, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah, because somebody, Wendell, you may have asked me that. Did I know this person? And I've seen I have seen the name a few times, but I don't know I don't know him. Um, but so we could talk about anything, but I know people here they want to hear about the cryptids and stuff first. And I'm gonna tell you, y'all, what happened to me this weekend. And I'll make it quick because it was like a whole day Saturday. I can't say any names. I got threatened. They wanted to talk to me, but I got to this place in Alabama, and this person wanted to talk to me. And when I got there, there's a lot of people around this huge table under this covered patio, screened in porch on the water there. And I went in. We were there late, got there late, so I started eating the barbecue. And the guy comes in. He said, "Hey, these people out here are waiting to talk to you about this Bigfoot thing." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I done walked into an intervention." I thought, "Oh, this is going to be so bad." But anyway, what it
This
was,
is
they
this is down in Athens, wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
and what it was, uh, they had lived with these things for decades, from the 40s, um, 50s on up to. Thank you, JB. Um, Jeremiah, you'd like to talk to Don. He can talk to you about anything. But so
We were going to get together, yeah, soon.
I got I got talking to these
Hey,
people,
Rex.
and they wanted they had never talked to anybody, and they had shared these podcasts and listen 80-year-old people that never had listened to podcasts or anything, um, and they told me stories for hours about their family living with these things. I asked them, "Have you ever watched YouTube?" They had seen some Finding Bigfoot because they were interested, but that was on regular TV. But they didn't do any research on anything. And some of the things they told me was just like what Kumbo, um, you know, and some of these guys, Mark and Greg, and some of the things that they had told us about, like simple things like we had put together when they want to leave quickly, they might drop on all fours, and the, these people had some of the same stories, and it was just incredible. The close up, and I mean, almost being able to touch these things, and they didn't call them Bigfoot because when their family started seeing these things, the term Bigfoot hadn't been coined yet. It was, it was like in the late 50s, so they all called them the big monkeys. And then some of the stories that South Giles County, which I'm on the south end of Marshall County, and it was Tarpley Shop Road. I don't know if you know where that's at, Don, but
Yeah, I do.
all of those hollers and stuff right there back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. All of these people. I mean, I've got credible stories from them. I don't have time to tell them tonight, but I'm sitting there and I can they're asking questions, and I've learned so much in the last 8 months or so from talking to people that I could make sense. Tell them what this was, what that was, and sometimes I could stop them before they finish and say, "Hey, this happened, didn't it?" And they're like, "How'd you know?" So um, these 70, 60, 70, 80-year-old people are listening to podcasts like Jeremiah's because of a local connection, and like, hey, they're talking about it now. They were told all their life, do not speak of this, because people think you're crazy. And I know Don's been through this. He has tried so much to educate us on other things that's going on in the world and the connections of all of this stuff. And people just won't listen until it gets real to them. And no matter what that is, whether it's Bigfoot, or it's a ghost, or whatever, hey, the older generation is listening because it makes them feel at ease, I guess, because I mean, I guess if you live for 30 years in a hollow with these big monkeys, you might think, well, is my whole family crazy, you know? Um, and some of the things they're telling me, they didn't read, they didn't watch it on TV. They're talking from experience, and I'm just in awe of these different stories. They had no reason to lie to me, and for the amount of time that they talked, and then at the end, they almost threatened me, like, don't use our names anywhere, but you can tell the stories. They don't have anything to gain from it. But and then some of them that were sitting around had no idea. And listening to the stories, there was a lot of people there. They started thinking about to their childhood or when they were in their 20s or whatever, things that had happened when they were hunting. And one guy, they asked him, he said, have you ever seen anything? And he said, no. Clearly said no. Well, after everybody left, it was his house. He said, Roger, I need to talk to you. And he started telling me stories. He actually did see one, and he was in a tree stand with a bow, and it ran across the field. And he said it wasn't a bear. And this guy's been hunting out west, so he's seen moose and elk and bear, brown, the big grizzlies and browns, and he's heard all the noises, and he don't get shook up easy. This guy's just he was he was a rodeo guy. He could jump on bulls, so ain't too many things gonna scare him. And he said he was in his stand. This is one story. He was in his stand, and he looks out in the field. Something was moving, and it was on all fours. But a bear, or okay, so you got a cow would be level. A bear would be jacked up a little bit, like that with the shorter legs in the front, or maybe level. But he said this thing was like this, and it was reaching out and grabbing and pulling with shorter, back leg. He said it was one of them big monkeys. He said, it was huge. So anyway, it just blew my mind to be exposed to all of that experience. And this is why I'm doing this. This is why I went on Jeremiah's shows, why I went on Woodwalkers with Spencer and Misty and Mike's show and all of these shows, because I'm learning. And Don knows this. I've been trying to learn from him. I just can't keep up with him. But so, Don, we've talked about um, in the past, and I know some of the people in the audience will maybe feel like this, like probably 4 or 5 years ago, I started feeling like something wasn't right. Not not sick or anything like that, but something just wasn't right
In the world.
in
Yeah,
the
something
in
in
the
the
world.
world isn't right. Yeah.
And then slowly things started happening, and then after we talked, I've called you at times and said, I think things are speeding up, and it feels like it's on like an ebb and flow where it'll speed up, and it's like a roller coaster. And so with with we've talked about this, and I'm doing all the talking right now, but I'm setting him up to where he can jump in here. We've also talked about these shows like Ancient Aliens, Finding Bigfoot, Monster Quest. I wrote something, the paranormal shows that got really, really popular. And um, we had talked about before, like, what are they priming us for? This is like 7, 8 years ago, probably, or better. And thank you, Misty. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we even said this back then. What are they getting us ready for? Because we both know um, that if something of the magnitude of the government saying, "Hey, there are UFOs," well, people would freak out. Well, I think they got us so used to it when they finally said, "Hey, there are UAPs," and we've been dealing with them for years. Nobody batted an eye. Um, and so now that they've admitting to this, now you've got the Bigfoot and the Dog Man and the paranormal and all this stuff, and some people feel they're all connected. And Don, you've got good theories and good answers to all this. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, and you just start from where you want to.
Well, I'll just make a disclaimer here on the front end. These are my opinions, and they don't reflect the attitudes of my employer.
You're retired.
I'm
You don't
retired. Yeah.
you don't have to keep that stuff close to the vest anymore.
um, I've given a little thought on maybe how we could start with this and bring up the topic of what is the nature of reality. Uh, and we've talked in the past as uh, how our 3D five senses only pick up a narrow bandwidth of everything that there is out there, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a long time ago, uh, I ran across this little verse in the Bible that talked about, as you believe, so shall it be done unto you, or as a man thinketh, so shall it be done unto him. And from that standpoint, uh, your belief system creates your own reality. Now, that is a hard concept to uh, for a lot of people to wrap their head around. Uh, most most folks, if you're working and you got a family, you don't have the time. A lot of times, just the interest either to try to jump down the rabbit hole, so to speak. Uh, but if you think in terms of your belief system creates your own reality, and you can basically look around at any person that you know and what they believe deep down in their subconscious, in their soul, or whatever, um, is how life is going to play out for them. In other words, I'll give you two examples. One is if you are uh, taught to believe that you're a victim, you will follow the victim path. If you come from a family background that promotes good work ethics, being honest, uh, striving, stretching yourself to be successful, and you believe you're going to be successful, you will. And so we basically, all of us are in the at the point or the position of living out the realities that are embedded within our belief systems. Now, that starts raising the question about how crazy all this other stuff is out there from the standpoint that the powers that be, let's say, have known for years and years and years how to manipulate belief systems. And the powers that be include um the churches, et cetera, et cetera. And um there has been in the last 10 or 12 years, there's been some really good works done by uh, Dr. Joe Dispenza and who am I thinking of right now? Greg Braden. And both of these guys are uh, highly educated. And what they have uh, come across is that this idea of the awakening, if you want to call it that, it's a global occurrence. Um, but with this process of awakening, we are discovering that we can actually manipulate physical matter, uh, manipulate our environment. We can manipulate our um, outcomes, I guess, if you want to call it that. strictly based on our belief systems. Now, another thing that is interesting is from an astrological point of view, and a lot of people may think, well, this is just kind of some new age hokey pokey kind of stuff, but um, we've had uh, in the last year or so, we've had some planetary alignments that um, suggest that we are going through a period of challenging our belief systems or having our belief systems challenged as more and more information begins to come up. And a good example of that is uh, just the whole notion that we uh, grew up thinking that the government was acting on our behalf, so to speak. Uh, but we're discovering that uh, the powers that be basically have declared war on the people. Um, it's like I said, this conversation could go in so many different directions. But we had talked about energies and frequencies and how we perceive things. And uh, I think on Mike's show, we talked about how we've been getting bombarded with um, uh, solar radiation, solar rays, plasma bursts, coronal mass ejections to some degree. And the uh, kind of the new age thought on a lot of this is that these were uh, the effects that were predicted as we moved into the age of Aquarius, so to speak, where uh, and the Bible speaks about it too. You know, a time where knowledge is increased and people moving to and fro. Uh, I know there's a Hopi Indian prophecy that the world will be covered with a web. Well, we got the World Wide Web now, you know, and the good thing about the internet and platforms like YouTube are exposing people to things that uh, some did not want us to know about because once we figure this out, they just lose control over us. And so uh, you and I talked a little bit about the pineal gland as a kind of an antenna to the universal uh, knowledge base, so to speak, uh, connection to what we would call God, and the idea of uh, I know back around uh, the end of the Mayan calendar, the 2012 uh, event, uh, there it depicted the end of a time period, not the end of the world, but the end of a time period, which basically is a point in time where the energies coming, the cosmic energies coming from uh, the galaxy, from our sun and whatnot, will have psychological and uh, physical uh, changes in the way that we are able to perceive. Um, I think one of the best words to um, describe that would be discernment. You know, and if if my opinion is anywhere close, I'm thinking that uh, a lot of this radiation, we're getting gamma rays that are actually touching the ground now that uh, up until a few years ago never used to happen. Uh, we have yeah, I see David's comment. Yeah, calcification of the pineal gland. That's one of the reasons they don't want us to be able to have this level of discernment, because it's a lot easier to pick out the lies. It's a lot easier to uh, read between the lines as to what the powers that be, who have literally the same dark forces, have been in control of this planet for 1,000 years or more. So this idea of the awakening is, it's a natural occurrence. Uh, I'm thinking that these extra shots of radiation or energies from the sun could very well be a natural process that will uh, help to decalcify the pineal gland. Uh, and because everything is connected, then if you are a little more tuned in than you were 10 years ago, you know, you can call it experience, but it's more than that. It's kind of a knowing when you know.
Yeah.
Um, it's you're just a lot less likely to be misled. And through this process, uh, the the paranormal begins to show itself a little bit more to other people. Um, and whether we classify the cryptid conversation in with the paranormal, it's kind of up in the air as to whether or not that is what's going on. But and that reverted back to a question somebody had here a couple of shows ago about why do some people seem to see them, get along with them, communicate with them, and others don't. And so all of this could be connected to uh, the spiritual uh, rising of uh, frequencies, earth frequencies, um, to a point where uh, once we are able to grasp the concepts that our thoughts can actually be materialized in one form or another, uh, we can provide for what we need ourselves without, uh, let's say, being a slave to those who would keep us enslaved. Um, and one of the most uh, potent or powerful things that I've ever seen was a clip from Greg Braden. And the title of this clip was How to Cure Cancer in 3 Minutes or Less. And he showed uh, a woman in China who had been diagnosed with stage 4 bladder cancer. And the traditional doctors told her there was nothing else that she could do. And so she went to what was called a medicine-less hospital in China. And these 3 practitioners came in, and they had uh, an X-ray photo of the bladder itself, with showing the tumor that probably encompassed 2/3 of the bladder. And then they had a live X-ray going on that they were monitoring, being able to check them side by side. And these 3 practitioners came in, and uh, one stood on either side of her, I think one at her head, and they started this chant. And Obviously, it was in Chinese, but what Greg Braden was talking about was basically what they were saying was already healed, already healed, already healed, already healed. And shortly, you could begin to see this tumor shrink and completely disappeared in 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Now, the way he explained that was that she believed that they could help her. They believed that they could help her. Uh, and what we're really talking about here is the laws of physics that we have grown up with do not apply in the quantum world, in the quantum field. Uh, the and this is part of this awakening is to be able to understand that, to be able to utilize it. uh, I think we're going to see uh, in a fairly short period of time a release of technologies that the governments have had hidden, free energy, perhaps med beds, uh, the uh, I see Misty here. Um, but as this process is taking place, it's actually happening worldwide, and uh, it's it's interesting. I think somebody asked on one of the other podcasts if I'd ever seen one of the little fairies, and I hadn't. But that day, I just happened to look, and there was a guy in Ireland who took a photograph of what appeared to be just a little 10-inch, 12-inch size fairy. And then today, I was looking at something that had multiple uh, archaeological discoveries of small human like creatures, no more than 10 or 12 inches tall. One actually had little fairy like wings that had been preserved, uh, but also critters that didn't look anything like humans. Other than, let's say, the head did not look anything like humans, but the body did. So we've got we've got our cryptid friends out there that are living in a body form almost identical to ours. Uh, we're pretty sure that they are sentient beings who have the ability to think logically and interact with people. And I think there's probably several on the listening in right now who have maybe heard vocalizations as well as words or languages uh, coming from uh, some of their Sasquatch friends and whatnot. Uh, I'm looking at Misty's remark down
Yeah,
there too.
that a game warden told me that some people made a report of a fairy flying under a rock and disappearing.
Yeah.
So that and look, and while you were talking, thousands of conversations, we've had, but I used to hear, you know, everything's manipulated, like you just said, everything's manipulated. Well, at first I kind of thought that was, BS. I'm like, how could everything be manipulated? So Don, I got injured at work at the other job I had. I forgot what 3.5 years ago, maybe it was in February, or no, 2.5 years ago. And I had been feeling something was up. I didn't know what. And I was sitting at home, didn't have anything to do. And I'm, you know what? I haven't talked to Don in a while. And my life was fine. No,
Sorry, I ruined it for you.
you're good. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing? I hadn't talked to you in a while." He said, "Hey," he asked me a couple questions. He knows how I am. I'm not going to just believe anybody, whatever. So he pointed me in several directions to go to go look at, a lot of things that was going on.
All my crazy conspiracy theories back in the
Well,
day.
well, now they're conspiracy facts, most of them. So,
Right.
uh,
Right.
so you know, after doing research, I called him back. I was like, "Oh hell, this this is crazy." So, but anyway, he turned me on to some people on YouTube, and one of them was this. This has to do with the money. Bix Weir talks about the silver and the manipulation and all that, and he said everything's rigged. And I thought that's no way. Well, in the past couple of years, I've dabbled in a little bit of all this and been in those communities to watch, your stock market, which I was involved in back in the late '90s with my mom, um, the commodities, everything. Everything is a game to make money for the powers that be. We're the little guys that they'll throw little crumbs on the table every now and then, but it's almost impossible to do well. Now you can if you learn, if you play their game, but so most people don't have time to do that, and
And you may have to sell your soul
to do it
in order to be part of the club.
right.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and so what I'm getting at is when I started seeing that actually, in action, then I start going down. Okay, what else is manipulated? I do know, I used to write for this small town newspaper, and it blew up to 4 counties, and I did learn some things about um, you can be manipulated if you hear something. You don't have to scream it, but if you read it enough times, it becomes your reality, like you just said earlier. And I'm always scared of that. If even, we're not going to mention any politicians, and but I, if I ever get the feeling like one person is, um, I'm agreeing with everything, I back up a little bit and make sure I'm not, you know, being pulled along, right? So, and not everybody does. I just don't trust. I just don't trust politicians, and that. But so even with the money, there's games being played, with that, and so I think from what I've seen, from what I've been watching, when I go, I listen, I'm learning from some of these other shows, some of these other people that have these great stories and experiences. I'm starting to see a pattern. Uh, we have some of the same realizations, some of the same experiences. Maybe we've we've been shown things from who I don't know, but I mean I could pick somebody out right now and say, hey, have you ever had a ghostly experience? Have you ever had deja vu? Have you ever had something strange happen? It's almost like some of us are waking up a little more, at a than, but we're getting there. So with the Bigfoot, and I don't know, maybe I saw one back when I was 14 to get me to this point, and maybe that's with some of the other people in chat that are watching. Maybe that's how, you know, maybe that's the way to point us. We all get here from different paths, but it's like we're coming to the same, not rabbit hole. I don't want to use that word. Everybody overuses that, but we're coming to the same hallway, and we're having these meetings. Like, we got 13 people in chat. That's not a lot of people, but that's a heck of a meeting on a Wednesday night. And people are curious of why things are happening to them. I think it was we had the question earlier about, are there more of them, or just they're more active. My take on that is we're building more, we're pushing things, but also, are there more of them, or has it been normalized to the point that we don't feel self conscious about talking about our experiences? Those stories I heard the other day had been held back for decades, and So,
And these were people that you have known for a long time and never mentioned it.
well,
Yeah,
some of them, yes,
yeah.
some of them I just met, which was weird. Okay, there we go again. They had heard my voice or seen me on podcast, and maybe got a feeling from me where they trusted me to tell me the stories, and they all kind of, I guess, they got together and said, okay, let's, we want to know some things. So when we talk about everything's connected, it might be connected, but we might not see how. But we're all headed towards the same place. I feel like, or it may be different paths, but in this awakening thing, it's not everybody yet, but it's more than it was. You know,
Yeah, a lot more, a
yeah,
lot more. And like I said, this is going on worldwide.
yeah.
Uh, it's going on in India, in France, Hungary, even the Netherlands. The, basically, people are saying we think we're electing governments to rule in our uh, best interests, and uh, but what a lot of people don't realize is that uh, the Admiralty law that was that came into effect uh, about 1619 or so, uh, basically declared the citizens of the world to be permanent indebted slaves. And they do that through the court system. We're living under two separate constitutions um, and two separate forms of government. The de facto government under Admiralty law basically stripped all of our rights away from our constitutional law. And uh, Admiralty law is all about contract law. And this is why lawyers and judges and courts basically rule the world. Um, it's a Supreme Court ruling back in the 40s or 50s basically admitted that the only rights that we had as a 14th Amendment citizen was the right to reside in the country. It just uh, overrode the Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments. So that has, through a process of incrementalism, uh, the globalists, the one world order people, uh, have been able to just siphon the wealth of the middle classes uh, by a system of laws that they created out of thin air. Uh, so in uh, in Admiralty law, everything is defined uh, by Black's Law Dictionary, and if you look up the word judge in Black's Law's dictionary, it says uh, see banker, see post office. If you look up lawyer or attorney in Black's Law's dictionary, it says see banker, see post office. And the
So
reason post office is in there is because the chief postal judges have control over all commercial activities by mail or whatever.
who
So
set the Federal Reserve? Where did that come from?
it was for anybody that really wants to know the history of that, there's a terrific book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 by J.P. Morgan and some of the high ranking bankers in New York bankers, who were all connected to the Bank of England in one way or another, the Rothschilds. And uh, it occurred after another uh, recession or depression that was uh, a flaw in the banking system, and it was presented as a means to stabilize the currency and the economy. That is how it was presented to the public. And one of the senators who originally introduced it uh, was a banker, and Congress struck it down. And they so they decided to have somebody else present this bill for the Federal Reserve uh, and define it as something that would be good for you, so to speak. But in essence, it was the creation of the greatest Ponzi scheme that's ever been invented. And the Federal Reserve is neither a federal agency nor does it have any reserves whatsoever. It's a private bank with stockholders. With the Columbia Organic Act of 1871, this is where our original Constitution really got uh, torn apart. They the Columbia Organic Act created the 10 square mile area of Washington, D.C. as a private, as uh, a sovereign city state, not part of the United States. And it set up admiralty law, uh, which is all contract law. And the uh, the mechanism that was used created was created in 1933 when they created the Social Security Act, and when everybody that has a Social Security card uh, was automatically became part of the Corp USA Inc., which the United States of America in all caps letters is another private for-profit corporation with stockholders. And there's only about 30 or 35 of those stockholders, and only 5 of them are even in the U.S. So, but this was the mechanism that they set up uh, to control the money flow to whoever they wanted it to. And made it very, very difficult for the average person to be free and independent. When you've got enough money and you can tell everybody else to go take a flying leap, you're kind of free. But that is uh, uh, the method that was put in place as a control structure.
So
And
so how now I know some of these answers, but so how important is the recent vote with BRICS to dump the dollar and start using their own currencies, their precious metal backed currencies? You know, I was involved with the Reddit crowd early on with the Wall Street silver and all that, and we learned a lot about. I think one of my favorite quotes was, "History doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes." And we started digging into, guys, y'all listening. I feel this is important. Me and Don had talked about where we might go, but just for a few minutes, just I know some of y'all right on this. I see some of the comments, and I know some of you going to know more than I do. But have any of y'all noticed in the last 2 years or better, all of the people with money come into your neighborhoods and buying up all the land, all the houses, and investing in businesses and all this stuff? So a couple years ago, I I never had heard of Weimar Germany, 1933, when they had all the hyperinflation. And there's a book, I think it's Penniless Millionaires. I've never read it. I've read excerpts from it that scared the crap out of me. And where these people back then in the 30s had, 70, 60, 70,000 marks or whatever they had, enough to retire on. And by the time they got to the bank that day, I mean, it was worth nothing. And so what happened leading up to that, people with money that knew, yeah, with people that knew, like the rich people that are in the club that I'm not in, of course, obviously, they started buying even like Rolex watches, collectible car, tangible hard assets, uh, houses, bunches of land. You've seen what the billionaires have been buying up, because if the dollar does tank, then at least they have something of value. And so, getting back to what could protect us and mess up the grip that the Federal Reserve and powers that be have, the precious metals, yeah, silver, um, silver, and I can't afford gold, but I've tried to buy a little bit, to help out if things get tight. But um, that's something, if y'all hadn't checked that out, start digging into that, because you can look at Zimbabwe and how the hyperinflation hit, where one day you can buy a chicken for $1, and we're seeing it. This has gone along. Supposedly we got 5%, let's say 5% inflation. But when I go to the grocery store and I pay 3 times what I paid last year for an item, that's not 5%.
Well,
So
there's one way to look at it, uh, is that uh, everything costs the same today as it did in 1920. The only difference is the purchasing power of the dollar. So the Federal Reserve can print unlimited amounts of money, and the more they flood the uh, uh, the world with the when when the uh, when the petrodollar became the global currency, the primary global currency, uh, they called it the petrodollar because there was an agreement made at the meeting of Bretton Woods back years ago that said that all oil sales uh, and purchases had to be done in U.S. dollars. So that created a demand worldwide for the U.S. dollar. So the Federal Reserve just kept calling the Treasury up. There's no real money exchange. It's all on paper. They send a request to the Treasury. We need another $100 billion. You know, so it goes to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve then turns around and sells it on the at the discount window for about 1/4 of 1%. The big commercial banks buy it, and then they turn around and loan it back out anywhere from 6% to 18 or 21%. Uh, so, but it's all based on nothing. Now, that goes back to your question as to the effect of the BRICS nations. It really is going to destroy the dollar, which is probably the best thing that could happen to the whole world, because with a fiat dollar, the same dollar can be spent 40 different times, and every time it's spent, it loses more value. Uh, but for those of us here who uh, are going to have to live through a period of time, and I don't know how long that will be. It could be a matter of months. It depends on who's behind the scenes, um, as to whether they're putting together a better system. And I do think that is happening. But when you're right. Theoretically, we could hit an inflation level like they did have in the Weimar Republic, uh, where every day your purchasing power went down and down and down and down. So uh, the when Nixon took us off the gold standard, it just opened the doors for graft and corruption. The Federal Reserve can print all the money it needs. The government really doesn't even need our money. I just heard today where the deficit was up $2 trillion from last year, and we're at a $32 trillion national debt, which is totally unsustainable. And the bankers know that, but their hands are tied because if you go to a gold back system, uh, they can't manipulate that
Right.
because it has a base rate value to it. It has something of value to it. Uh,
And
and what
and talking about finding out about the manipulation, I know this. Some of you may know. Like I said, I see some comments that some of them been keeping up with it for a while, which is awesome. But like I don't know, last year sometime, I was I had got some nickels at the bank. A couple $100 worth of nickels and put them back because they said in times of hyperinflation, even the real money, which is copper and nickel, they have some kind of value. They're not paper, right? So I put some back, and I was kind of keeping up with the nickel price, um, and one night it I don't know what you call it, the market crashed, but what I mean is it nickel went up so high is what they're thinking about what happened to the silver and all that when the supply gets low. But this billionaire was shorting nickel and overseas. I think it was what's that called? We have the Comex here, and they have the thing over in, I don't know if it's France or whatever. But they're like, hey, you owe so many hundreds of millions or billions or whatever. He said, I'm not paying you. So they changed the rules for the big guys. You can't win. I mean, they'll change the rules on you in midstream.
right,
They'll
right,
It's like taking their football back and say, hey, wait a minute, we're going to change the rules because we can't have these big guys losing. And I've seen this happen. And what they did, any trade made after midnight was null and void. So these people that thought they made all this money and they're celebrating, they're like, no, we can't let you do that because if you do, this billionaire might lose a few dollars. So we're going to cater to him. So I've seen the market break in nickel for a few hours, and the silver, they're expecting the same thing, but who knows what they'll do. But and I know a lot of people, and they say the prepping has turned into a bad word, which it comes from prepare. My grandmother that lived through the depression, she 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 was one of the original preppers. You go look, she'd have extra stuff. She would freeze her bread. She wouldn't waste anything.
right,
And
right.
she may not have had much, but she had food because they lived through times where they didn't have food. And
Exactly.
and so and the thing is, it sounds like we're way off track here, and we might be a little, but I think all of this is connected in a way where we're waking up, and once we start questioning, uh, once we start questioning, we've been told this is not real. I just saw one. Uncle so and so, saw one. And the UFOs we've been told all our lives are not real. Some of us have seen them. You have, I have, and not just fleeting moments. I mean, the real deal, right up close.
Right. It's
And
about up close
so
and personal, as they say. Yeah.
so at 14, when I saw the Bigfoot for the first time, it changed. It changed me up here because uh, I didn't have any resources to go figure out what it was, but I'd hear all the people laugh about it and, call people crazy or whatever. But I'm sitting there thinking, they're real guys. I wouldn't, you can't really say that. You can now. You still get some sideways looks, but so a lot of this is connected, and I just don't. We could go so many different ways, um, and I know I don't want to bore people with a lot of that. I just wanted to mention some of this where y'all could go, do your own research. I'm never going to give it financial advice. The Lord knows I ain't been very good at that. But just keep an open mind. If we're talking about, like uh, like Flat Rock the other day sent me some sounds because I'd asked about what a juvenile sounded like because we had a scream the other night. There was four of us out there, and I've spent weeks racking my brain looking for sounds and stuff. And he sent some audio, and where I'm getting at with this, it's good to have connections in all of this. You know, I might need something from you. I can trade later. Whatever. Well, we're trading information now. I've learned so much. Um, yeah, the groceries. It's crazy. People, it's getting bad. I drive public transportation. I was reading some of the comments here, and I have to take people in wheelchairs or whatnot to I believe that's one of Spencer's word whatnot. um, yeah, exactly. Barter items. I mean, see, I knew when we started talking about this, these are like minded people because of the subjects that we've been talking about. Yeah, I mean, even if it's small bottles of alcohol, like I'm talking about like gin or something, where you could might trade it. Tough times. I think when in school they told us that the things that people will splurge on are entertainment or things to make them forget about their issues for about an hour or so. So that could be alcohol, whatever, movies, whatever. But anyway, um, I don't even know what I'm saying. It's just,
Well, I'll put it in this term right here. The entertainment industry is for a distraction,
mhm.
um, just like professional sports. Uh, I think there was somebody wrote a book about professional football as being the modern day gladiators. This is you look at uh, the Caligulas and the Caesars in old Rome. They would entertain the people at the same time that they were going through this ultimate collapse of their empire because they had extended themselves so far that they couldn't control the people. Uh, but the this de facto government that we have right now has basically declared war on its citizens because we're considered to be a corporation. A lot of people don't know that, but your birth certificate made you a corporation. So this is much worse. What we already know now, it's a lot worse than that. And I mean, we could go into this global pedophilia, adrenochrome kind of stuff uh, from the dark forces. But just look what happened in Maui. Uh, that wasn't a wildfire. Those were directed energy weapons. I just saw a map of uh, Canada and showing all the wildfires in Canada. And there was a satellite picture uh, that was taken that about 10 of these individual fires all started up at about the same time. Now, if anybody thinks that's a coincidence, no,
Yeah.
it's
And,
not.
and
Uh,
you talk manipulation. I can't say that word right. Manipulation. Um, I think um, I think it would be smart for somebody that was trying to get by with something to actually put out misinformation too to get. You know what I always talk about smoke and mirrors.
yeah.
Like feed you a little bit while we're doing this over here, and it's just it's heart wrenching some of the things you're talking about. And you think, well, what can we do? What can we do? Um, but hopefully, there's things being done. I see every day where there's people being found and saved and rescued, and um, it's just um, it's just sad, you know.
Well, yeah, it was this deal in Hawaii and the total lack of transparency from the governor and uh, the FEMA people, even the FBI were down there, would not let they fenced the whole area off with a black sheet so you couldn't even see what's going on. And uh, the governor uh, was talking about, well, we're going to claim this land under eminent domain, and now you got Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates and a few other billionaires saying, yeah, we're gonna buy up all this land. But the native people there who've been there for 1,000 years are they're raising Cain now. They're beginning to see on their uh, own soils how we are basically considered nothing but chattel to be manipulated, and that this process of awakening is not necessarily it's not going to be uh, if you can be psychologically prepared for some times, uh, and that would include thinking about prepping a little bit, but uh, the uh, when Bitcoin came out as a decentralized currency, uh, it it resonated with a lot of people who already knew how corrupt the monetary system was, how corrupt the Federal Reserve was, and how corrupt Congress is. And think about this just a minute. If USA Inc. is the um, uh, sovereign city state, and you have been declared a corporation without your knowledge, the very fact that they declared you a corporate entity, and if you look on your on your birth certificate and your social security card, it will say an American banknote. You are collateral for any debt that the U.S. government incurs. So that's why they have no transparency. So if Corp USA is a private corporation, every congressman and every senator that's sitting in Congress uh, has to be a corporate entity and comes under the corporate bylaws that they enact. So basically, our Congress has been acting as the board of directors for the CEO who has been chosen prior to any elections ever since Kennedy was assassinated, that kind of thing. But the uh, the fact that you were declared a corporation was a fraudulent contract because as a baby you had no knowledge, no understanding, no comprehension of what the terms of the contract were. And you go back to Black's Law dictionary and you understand that it would be like somebody from Walmart walking up, knocking on your door and saying, you owe us $500 because we lost $2,000 from theft here the other day. You don't have a contract with Walmart, you know, but it's a private corporation. Yeah, I see David Hughes is on top of this right
Yeah,
here.
I
Thank you,
noticed
David.
some of the
Yeah,
comments. Hey, Greg, we gotta
yeah.
offer up prayers for Greg to get feeling better. He's having some issues with a ankle. He's probably Greg. That ain't from like my dad used to do when you're working on something. He get mad, and start kicking stuff. You ain't been kicking air conditioning units, have you? I'm not to make fun because he's actually had a pretty rough time, but that's what my dad would do. He get the sounded like my was that you? Hold on a second, y'all. Are you okay? I don't know what just happened. Hold on a second. I'll be right back.
All right.
Well, mute microphone.
While we're waiting, I do have the ability to see the chats there. And David, you're correctly right. The president is the CEO of a private corporation.
All right. I put a fan in there. It's running wide open, and Heather, it's in the dark. She's she he kicked it, but I don't think she meant to. What is it? Greg? He said I wanted to. Yeah. Um. So y'all, the reason I wanted to bring some of this stuff up tonight, and I'm all about the Bigfoot and and everything because you know it's um it's intriguing why we've been shown some of y'all live with them, but through this tough period that's coming up that Don has just said, and some of you in chat talked about, we don't know how long it's going to go. If you're prepared for something, we don't know how we're going to handle it personally, but if we are awake, then we may be able to handle it well enough to educate your family when it does happen. The ones that have their head in the sand, and it's just like the Bigfoot subject or the Dogman subject or whatever. If it scares people, so they don't want to talk about it. So I have actually talked to people that cannot grasp the idea that that dollar bill they're holding is worthless, and have no idea. They don't even think about it, but for the same reasons as the Bigfoot stories, because it scares them. So, you know, I know a lot of you. I know people are making their own stuff. I, I've got I've got ways to purify water. Not a lot at one time, but enough to get by. Hopefully, got people I know that has water supplies. They might barter, trade some stuff with. I don't have a lot of money, so I've tried to get things y'all have mentioned in chat here, and making connections with people is one of the main things. It has to be a community thing. I don't think you're going to be able to do a lot by yourself. It has to be um, a group effort.
Everybody's going to have to help everybody. Yeah. Um,
And if the people that
I'm lucky.
feel,
I'm lucky in the respect that I have an artesian well. So if my pump goes out, I just have to set a bucket right beside it, and it'll overflow into it. So that at least that's one good thing going on. And
I
uh,
I knew I like
enough land here to raise a couple of calves or some hogs or some chickens if I need to or whatever.
look. Greg joined us late, and listen what he just said. I knew I liked him. Well, I like all y'all, but invest in precious metals, steel, copper, lead, and brass. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, who knows? Copper may be a precious metal in the future. It'll hold value, but I mean, because it's a what is it? Industrial metal, just like nickel and all that.
And silver. See, that's the thing about silver, and there is no way that silver should be 87-1 ratio with gold.
No, Now that's another thing. You're like, okay, invested in silver, kind of a insurance policy, and some people get mad. They're like, oh my god, the price is it's not going up or whatever. Well, I'd asked you this before. Hopefully, some of the good guys are holding it down for us so we can afford a little more here, a little at a time. But I don't know if that's the reason or not. But I wished it was $7 again. I'd load up $7 an ounce.
Right. Right.
And I know Mark Mark Green and his wife. They have their show um, Homestead, and I love that. I try to tune in when I can because they have a lot of great information about gardening. And I asked them the other night, somebody mentioned rose petal tea. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, how you make that? It was just like, well, you take the rose petals, you put hot water over it, put some honey in it. So it was pretty easy. But there's a lot of things that I need to learn, I guess. But 35 to 40 to 1 at the most, yeah. Oh,
Well, traditionally, before they started manipulating gold and silver, it was 16 to 1.
and and there's been times
Yeah.
in history. There's been times in history where it actually was worth more than gold in certain settings. Yeah, Cedar Creek's bottom farmstead. Okay, yeah, I enjoy listening to those guys. If Spencer would leave them alone long enough, but guys, gals, is there anything that you want Don to talk about? Something that you may have heard him say before in another show that you didn't quite get, or um, yeah, historically, about 20 to 1. There have been times. Well, it's like I don't know if a lot of people have read some of the stuff about the hyperinflation, even in Venezuela here lately. When I was on the Reddit page. There was a girl that was living in the middle of all that, and she was reporting back, and they said an ounce of silver would feed a family of five for 5 to 6 weeks, 4 to 5.
Right.
uh,
Right.
and then she's reported back that she saw a a decent house go for 8. She said it was 8 coins, 8 silver coins. So when people get to where they don't trust the paper money, the fiat money that their country has, um, that then they're gonna they're gonna always turn back to the things of value. And y'all mentioned a lot. It's not always. It'd be gold and silver first, and then it'd be things that hold value. Like heck, you'd probably be surprised what a clean 5 gallon bucket might be worth one of these days. You know, to carry water in. It could be anything. Anything. Somebody did say it's something you can use. Tools. I've thought about um, shovels, uh, post hole diggers, stuff like that. Little hatchets, whatever, knives. I've got, we used to sell knives, and I've got several wet rocks and a few knives left, not many, but enough, you know, to maybe that might be something good to invest in, a few wet rocks. But and I've noticed with some of the people talking before, I'm like, yeah, they'll know what we're talking about. Martha Sunquist in East Tennessee. Any strange sightings? I don't. We. I'm gonna have to look tomorrow, y'all. I'm gonna get this Streamyard figured out. It was kind of embarrassing. I was like, I put it out there, and there's probably people on Facebook now. We can't find the link, and we're on a totally different link now. So I'm glad. Thank y'all for coming in. This is we're just getting started, and I want this to be just like some of the others, just somewhere where we can go. And that's fine, David. It was my fault. It was totally my fault. Yeah, a freeze dryer. Yeah, that would be. And see, with those things, with stuff like that, you could actually charge people a little bit. Yep, absolutely. Sugar and salt. I've I've got um, quite a bit of salt, but I probably don't have enough. But my uncle used, he still does. He makes country hams, and I mean it's pretty easy if you got the time. And oh yeah, so Don, what? Let me think how to put this. You've told most of your stories, but I know one you probably haven't told. So
Uh-oh.
no, so when tell them about when you were a MUFON investigator, and was it the other game warden? Was it Charlie? Is his name, or is that if I get
Charlie
that?
Boyd.
Well,
Well, Charlie Boyd was a supervisor here. Yeah,
were
that's who
y'all
you're thinking
together?
about.
Were y'all together when you saw that UFO?
No.
Will you tell that story? I don't know if you've told that or not.
Uh, well, this was just one of many that Jennifer's dad, Charlie, and I saw.
So
Um,
if y'all he's referring to Jennifer Appleton. Y'all see her. Y'all seen her on a few shows, and she's a moderator of that Bigfoot group on Facebook. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
uh, yeah, uh, Charlie was a buddy of mine, good friend, and we were coming back toward Lewisburg one night from the south end of the county, coming up the line of road and or Spring Place Road, and uh, I just happened to glance up. This was at 1:30 in the morning, I guess, and I just happened to glance up and I saw these lights. And the first thing that ran across my mind was this looked like an aircraft carrier. I mean, a commercial aircraft. And the second thing I noticed was that it was below the silhouette of Possum Trot Hill that was lit up from the backlit from the lights of town. And I just slammed on the brakes, put the truck in park, and stood up on the running board on my side. And Charlie stepped out on his side. And this craft uh, was a pretty good sized craft, perhaps 100 feet long. Um, we could see, we counted 22 opaque porthole windows. You couldn't see through them, but you could see the glow through them. And it was coming straight toward us. Um, and as it came by, it was not moving more than about 10 miles an hour at the most, did not make a sound. Um, and when it got almost 90 degrees from the road from us, the thing tipped up on its side and kind of squeezed through a little narrow hollow, uh, a valley, going up a little valley. For those who don't know what hollers are. And so I told Charlie, I said, jump in the jump in the truck real quick. And I just spun around the middle of the road and drove to back down to Spring Place up on top of the big ball knob where you could see the whole countryside. And we never did see this thing come back out. But it had a T-bar strobe on the top and a T-bar strobe on the bottom. So that was our, at the closest point, it was probably 50 yards at the most away from us. And, but we had seen other smaller craft. We'd seen lights in the sky that did all sorts of crazy things. But that was the one that really jumped out, you know. Um, but uh, and you were talking about this area down around Tarpley. That's probably not too far from Miner Hill, where David Swanner had his encounter with the UFO, with a Bigfoot coming out of the UFO and disappearing into the woods.
Well, so Tarpley Shop Road, way it sounded, those hollows there, uh, everybody that lived in that area was having the same experiences with these big monkeys,
Right.
and it
Right.
changed the way they did things because they said how they would hunt with their dogs, and hunting dogs usually not scared of much. And so what they started doing was they would let the dog. They would go somewhere. They're going to go in the woods and hunt or whatever kind of hunting they were doing. They would let the dogs go first. If they stayed in the woods for 5 minutes or so, they would go in. But if they went in and come back out with a tail tucked, trying to get back in the truck, they'd load them up and they'd go somewhere else because they knew from experience that one of those they called big monkeys was in there, at least one. Um, so being in that area with all of those big monkeys and then him, so you got the. It's amazing how the same areas have different um, activity. And I had asked you before, and I know we're just spitballing, but is it that they're connected, directly connected, or is it an area of energy or something? If you believe in the different dimensions and the energy, and is it like a roadway or a pathway or a crossroads of with these ley lines that Spencer had talked about, and um, is it just something that several different things use? They might not be connected directly, but I know there are stories of the alien and Bigfoot thing intertwined. Just like you said, he said
Mhm.
he saw it step on. Um, that's something that's hard to wrap your head around, but you know what? All of it individually is, and then when you start combining them, it just but we have to think about it. You
Yeah,
friend,
that's right.
your friend saw it. I mean, he told you trusted him, and you've seen things with him, and what goes along with that when you have friends, like Greg and Kumbo and all these guys that are around each other. They have experiences together, but then they watch the other guy tell this story, and they learn you know how they communicate, and a lot of times you can tell if somebody's fibbing or not, and then and 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 when a guy is telling you 100% truth because he's done it all his life about
Right.
different things, right?
Right.
So, um, it
I'm gonna let you talk for just a second. I'm gonna take a real quick break, and I'll be right back.
all right. So, yeah, I mean, y'all, so the ones that missed it, I was in Alabama this past weekend, and I'll just tell a few of the stories. It and Greg, y'all, it reminded me of some of y'all stories in Coonbo, because these people weren't saying, "Oh my God, I think I saw this." They were like telling me things that had happened, and one of them, he said, one of them was hunting. One of the uncles was hunting, probably 50s or 60s. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right, Greg. And this may be, you know, this may be a good thing we're all meeting each other. Especially locally, you got to have people that trust you. That's a big thing. I watched. I got turned on to The Walking Dead a couple seasons into it, so I started binge watching it. And then about the third or fourth season, I'm slow. I'm like, this show's not about the zombies. It's about the humans and how they react in the SHTF situations. And so I started paying a little more attention to what I was watching. And then you get to thinking about scenarios where maybe somebody does come to your door to barter, uh, I want 3 chickens and I want 4 shotgun shells, and then they turn around and shoot you with a shotgun shell. So you there's a lot of things to think about. If a family comes up, I don't even want to talk about it. You're gonna have to make some tough decisions. Let's put it that way. Just as long as you keep, you know, I don't know what we're gonna do. I just pray about it a lot. Pray that we don't have to make some of these decisions that we know. But anyway, um, yeah, yeah, you don't want to be storing it up for the thieves. That's right. Um, But anyway, this one hunt, they said the uncle told him he'd walked up in the edge of he'd walked up the edge of the field, and he backed into some cedars. He didn't, they were poor. They didn't have a stand or anything like that back in those times. And he was just standing there, and he it was kind of sloped down the hill in front of him, and he thought he saw a bull coming to him straight on. And then it got about 30 yards from him, and he realized that it wasn't a bull, it was one of the big monkeys. But he said it was a younger one because they had seen the bigger ones a lot. Even had them come up in camp with them. But he said it was coming to him, and right as it realized that he was standing there, he said a surprise in its face. And but he said the odd thing when he told the story, he said above his brows he had a red streak across, but it wasn't skin color, like it'd been added, and he always thought that was strange. But yeah, so this thing was he didn't know what it was doing, and said when it um, y'all like this, Marcus told this happening too. He said it was kind of trotting to him on 2 feet, but when it turned to get away, when it knew it might have been in trouble, it it went down on all fours and just exploded. Whichever I don't know left or right.
Well, that you and I talked about this too, but that kind of explains um, the massive forearms. If you're running on those if you're running on those front arms at the same time, you got to have some strength to be able to do that.
Yeah, especially
I, I'd hate to try to do what was the old football exercise, the crawl, when you had to get down on all fours and
yeah,
go 10 yards and back.
yeah. We're not built for that. That's why it
No,
was up.
no.
But yeah, we this group of people that we've met here. Um, I got to noticing we're all kind of like minded, and everybody could probably start their own channel about different things and how to, and this is good. Hopefully, if things happen, we'll be able to continue to stay in touch, and help each other out. If we don't get to meet or whatever, still I might need some information from somebody on how to do something, or somebody could ask Don or me or whatever. But what was
Well,
the question, David? What was the question for Don? Oh yeah, remember you can't barter away anything that can be turned against you. That's yeah.
right, right.
Um,
Now there is talk of an internet blackout or an internet shutdown. Uh, a few dates have been thrown out. September the 23rd is one that seems to be popping up. Uh, and from what I understand, if you download the Signal app, it works on the military frequencies. And if you can have your families uh, use the Signal app, you still may be able to communicate with people from that particular application. But as far as I know, that may be the only one that's going to be workable.
hey
Uh,
Misty, can you send Mike Bluler a link to this show? He's telling me the other one's private. I guess he thinks we're finished with it. Thank you. If you do that, thank you. He's but yeah, I'm sorry, Don. I did exactly what I
that's
said.
fine. That's fine.
But yeah,
But
I mean, hopefully, I you know we don't know what's going to happen, but all you can do is just be prepared for just about anything. And the only thing I can say is what somebody alluded to earlier. The system almost has to break for us all to come out on the good side of this, because it's a system against us. It's built against all of us. I mean, we're not. I remember back in. You remember when I was me and my mom was trading penny stocks, and a lot of people in the country were doing well at it. And at that time, I had just got into it, but I had done really good there for a little while. Well, then Alan Greenspan came out because a lot of people were making that money. He came out and made an announcement that ruled out probably 90% of the small investors, and they changed the rules. They said you have to have at least 25,000 in an account to day trade, which that's what everybody was doing. They'd hold it for 5 minutes or 2 hours or 8 hours, whatever, and flip it. And so that ruled out a lot of small people from making money. And it's still like that now. Yeah. Now, one of the biggest dangers right now is cashless economy.
Right.
Yeah.
Banks are going to be going to their own cryptocurrency type thing. Um, Ultimately, I think something like Bitcoin uh, will be the real currency, but it could be a go back thing. But this whole idea of awakening encompasses the whole spectrum of human existence, if you want to call it that. Uh, but as people awaken and as they find more information, as they begin to understand how we have been manipulated for so long, um, the um, this is part of the awakening and the idea of decentralization, to getting away from an all-powerful government that controls every aspect of your life is is part of this awakening movement, um, along with the spiritual rising of your frequencies for this sense of discernment is is coming into play, and it's going to play out differently for everybody around. Um, but the I see Greg's talking about the cashless society is going to be their attempt. Uh, but I think their centralized cashless society and what we're hearing about from the World Economic Forum, you'll own nothing and be happy, all this kind of stuff. People are seeing that today that never knew anything about the UN Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, uh, 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, they told us 30 and 40 years ago exactly what they were going to be doing.
Well,
And it's this awakening process is a slow process. And
well,
it could very well be that um, uh, the only way for humanity to bring its freedoms and liberties back. There's a whole lot more of us than there are of them, and they know that. So if their money, their power comes from their money. So when their money is destroyed, uh, they lose their power.
right.
And
Now, have you seen? I'm proud to be living in Tennessee, and there's other states also. Wyoming. There's a lot of states here in the core, in the middle. Tennessee was voted last year, I think, where we can use gold and silver as money. Okay, and I heard a couple nights ago that we actually have voted in a. Is it called a repository? Is that the is that
well,
the
I know Texas started stocking up on gold
yeah
as a part of
we
their currency. Yeah.
yeah we have to. They just recently voted this in a place to store it. So and there's other states. You might want to go Google which states that is because if you have some precious metal, silver, whatever, that might be some states you can trade with or trade in. But so there are people, and the states hold a lot of power. And people don't realize. I know y'all do here, obviously, but when I found that out, I was explaining to somebody about, if the dollar collapses and we can use like a silver dime because it's constitutional, you know, or now I don't know about the 999 pure rounds. I don't know if that would be considered money. Okay, so yeah, so is I think they just voted in that we have one, or we're going to have one now, a repository. Thank you. I wasn't sure if that was the right word. Um, too close to suppository. I wasn't. I wasn't making sure I didn't say the wrong thing. Uh, but uh, but there was there was something I was going to tell you. I wrote it down. I got a bunch of notes here. But so speaking of the digital money, so I was telling somebody a few months ago. I was like, yeah, there's uh there's going to be 17 banks, only 17 banks involved, and each woman, man, and child is going to have an account opened automatically in their name. And I was going through all these rules and things of what how it was going to work. And
Track your carbon footprint and all that nonsense.
well,
Yep.
no, it's just how it was going to be set up, right?
Yeah.
And so the person made a smart ass comment like, "How you want a conspiracy?" I said, "Go to the freaking government website. It's on there, you idiot.
Exactly.
It's it's
Exactly.
it's it's written out. They put it out like 2 Januaries ago. It's not. It's hidden in plain sight because you won't go listen to it. You won't go and look at stuff like this. They're getting by with it, And the ones that look at it and you read it word for word, they may change it. They could have, make an amendment to it or whatever because it's experimental to them. But it's like Greg, all these people here are saying it's all about control. And so this digital thing that I can't get it across to people. Like, okay, well, it's not going to affect me none. I have a debit card. I'm like, okay, you want to have a yard sale? What are you going to do? What do you mean? I'm like, you gonna get set up to take this digital dollar because you can't hand a digital dollar over to somebody, you know? And that's the best way I can explain it to them on that level. If let's say Flat Rock has a calf and he raises it for me, and I'm gonna give you so much for it. I drive down to where he's at. Hell, I can't pay him, if he don't take that. So I got to trade something to keep it off the record. It's going to make it so everything. I'm preaching to the choir here because they all know, but it's going to make it so tough. But there's ways around it, and it's not that you're trying to cheat anybody. You're not trying to cheat the government or whatever. You're just trying to survive, and it's just like that song. Rich men north of Richmond, they want to know everything you do. They want to control everything, and we know that.
Well,
So
kind
yeah,
of getting back to the topic of the awakening, there's a whole lot of people now that are seeing all of these control mechanisms beginning to affect them, uh, and you can you can concentrate on the doom and gloom uh, side of the equation, but in some respects, it's some hard times are going to be necessary to wake more people up. But my personal feeling is we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 years before we have uh, a completely new form of government, a completely new form of monetary system. I think it's kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes. And I hate to use that analogy because that's one of the Illuminati terms, but I think it's backfiring on them. uh,
we're gonna get
but
flagged so hard. I won't never have a show after this one again. So just let's enjoy it. But anyway, go ahead.
But I I think there is so much uh, patented technology that's been hidden from us that will have to be released. And ultimately, in the long run, things will get a whole lot better. Um, and the the analogy to the second coming of Christ, uh, when God returns, so to speak, is the way I'm seeing it is that we're already experiencing the second coming of what could be redefined somewhat in the sense of Christ consciousness. What were uh, uh, the great truths that Jesus brought that got that weren't taken out of the Bible? Uh, but if you understand, when Jesus said, "Believe in me," a lot of folks, I think, on a very simplistic term, think, well, if you just believe Jesus came and died on the cross, then everything's going to be all right. I think what he was saying was, if you believe the things that I'm telling you, such as you believe, so it shall be done unto you. All of the when Jesus talked to his disciples, when he was talking about all the things that I do, you can do also, and greater works also. I think all of that is part of this awakening process that is tied into the quantum field, where the learning to utilize energies and frequencies, or frequency and vibration, uh, is a is the door to spiritual freedom, if you want to put it in those terms. Uh, but it's I'm, I'm getting all of
Misty, I don't know.
the chats there,
Yeah,
kind
she's
of a thing.
asking. I don't. I have no idea. I can't on my phone here. Um,
Uh,
I just I'm in. I mean,
but
this,
I'm thinking we're, you know if we can make it through the maybe the 2 to 3 year period, that a lot of people may not make it through. I think we're going to have a better world. That's the way I look at it. We don't just concentrate on the doom and gloom. We can prepare, understanding that difficult times may be ahead, but also understand that with this awakening, with this new knowledge and an understanding of the quantum field and how this stuff works, uh, the whole world is going to be better off. Uh, but it will take some difficult times for uh, uh, people to go through, and particularly those who are still believing that the government is just out there to take care of them. When that does not happen, uh, we'll go back uh, to the focus on uh, merit, go back to the focus on excellence, uh, that will allow each individual person to utilize their natural gifts that they were born with, rather than being stuck in a box of whatever the quote central government tells you need to be. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel, the way I see it, uh, but that doesn't mean that you can just ignore what may be on the doorstep.
you know,
Uh,
I used to, I used to write for that little paper, and it was small town, and I told people that I wanted my column that I had once a week to be like us, all of us now, sitting on sitting on the back porch talking. You know, chit chatting, whatever. Thank you, Misty. I appreciate it. uh, and I, in one of my articles, I was talking about our traditions. A lot of y'all here know what I'm talking about, where you grew up, and it might have been tough times, but how happy we were and how okay we were with the slow pace, with walking 2 miles to go fishing, and you know, going to town once a week or whatever. It was simpler times, and everybody seemed to be pretty happy. Until, and no, I'm not gonna blame anybody here, because I've got a lot of friends that came in here to work with the Saturn plant, but I noticed something that happened. Just, how I pay attention to people, and so people moved into the community from other places, and because they weren't happy, they were telling how great it was where they come from, where, whatever. They tried to change, and some of them ran from an area and then tried to change it back this down here to where they like it was where they come from, that they hated. But then you had some that's like, oh, y'all, this is so miserable because you don't have this and you don't have that, and people's attitude started changing because of that influence. And I'm thinking, guys, you were just happy 10 years ago. The only thing that changed is somebody come in and told you you weren't happy, and it got into their heads. And I saw communities get like that, and it just was an observation of how you can be influenced. That's on a small scale, but just like y'all remember the 80s and some of these TV shows, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. You're never gonna have this, but here's a 24 karat toilet here that this guy's got. Look at that, rub your nose in it.
Yeah. Right.
People were happy, but they see this guy pull up in a Ferrari and in a 8,000 square foot house with a tennis court and 3 swimming pools, and now there's stuff out there. Well, that's not what it takes to be happy, but they show you this stuff, and you can fall for it. Me
Oh yeah. Yeah.
me personally, a couple acres out in the country with a pond. I'm happy where I'm at, but I'm in town. Not, I didn't grow up in town, and it's a small town. But anyway, and we'll get back. Yeah, and everybody's saying here, look, Greg. I think Greg started this, and it's gone on. I was told. Now this is another connection. Do you remember the guy that? All right, Jennifer Appleton lived in the house. Then I lived in the house. Then who moved in after that? It was it Max Franklin, the
I
military guy,
think so. Yeah.
no
Yeah.
frog man. He was a frog man
Yeah.
before there was a. I used to hunt with him, and people were scared of him. But he taught me a lot too. But
They had reason to be.
no, no, yeah, he was, he was something else. My mom like, you don't need to go hunt with him. He's crazy. I'm like, Mama, he's not crazy. I mean, he is, but he's not that type of crazy. But he told a story in our store in the mid to late '90s that he was sitting at a bar, and I don't know whether they had tattoos or something, and they knew what branch of the military they were in, and they got to talking. But there was a guy that told him they were drinking, and he told him, he didn't know him. He said, "We have the technology right now to shoot a beam from space, and we can cut out an 8-inch block out of a wall with energy, with a beam, and
Right.
match."
Directed energy weapons. Yep.
Yes, and that's what they're talking about. And this was told to him in sometime in the late '80s, and he told us in the '90s that he had talked to this guy. Um, and then now we're seeing possibility of it being used, and it's scary. I mean,
Well, yeah, I think
who's
Greg
in
brought
control?
up the idea about what about Maui, and everything that I'm seeing on this is uh, it has to be a directed energy weapon just by the effects of it. Uh, when
And
you can,
that if you have that, and the people that are in control are good people, no big deal. But we don't even know who's in control.
right, right.
I mean, the person that's supposed to be in control don't even know where he's at half the time. So anyway, that's all. Sorry, guys, but
um,
yeah, y'all, I
I
appreciate you
had,
hanging in there with.
yeah, yeah. Talking about the directed energy weapons. Uh, y'all remember the Paradise, California fire 3 or 4 years ago? I don't, I don't
I
know
don't
whether you recall it or not, but
know. I don't.
um, I I had a good friend who was retired, but he would be asked to do uh, government contract work, and basically it was like through OSHA, and they sent him out to this Paradise, California location, and basically his job was to make sure the linemen were wearing the hard hats and this kind of stuff. You know, he was getting paid a pretty good chunk of money just to sit in his car and watch. But he was able to get out and walk around where the whole community or little town there was gone, completely gone. And this was before anybody else was talking about directed energy weapons, and he said, there's some weird stuff going on up there. He said aluminum wheels were melted and the aluminum was running across the driveway, uh, sitting on asphalt that wasn't even scorched.
Hmm.
Now, asphalt will melt at about 375 degrees. Uh, Aluminum melts at about 1,300 degrees. Uh, but he saw firsthand a lot of stuff that just didn't make sense, and it's exactly the same pattern that we've seen in Maui. Uh, and it was a the, the big question is who is behind all of this? Uh, who's behind the chemtrailing situation?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
that's something I wanted to ask you.
yeah,
I remember you posting on Facebook years ago, and us talking about it, and you were called a conspiracy theorist, and there's no way, and then now they're admitting to it, and they're showing pictures on the planes. They even talk about it on the news. So you said earlier, um, there was something about the the rate the rate some stuff being stronger, radiation and all
yeah,
this stuff.
yeah.
Now, in those on those planes, I've heard that there are read that there's like metals in they put metals out into the air and it gets into our system or whatever. Well, if there's
Aluminum oxiding, yeah,
well, so could that possibly magnify some of these uh,
absolutely,
things that,
absolutely.
like, okay. Yeah, I meant to ask you that earlier.
I'll give you the best example that I could give you is that uh, what happens when you put a piece of aluminum foil in a microwave. You can put a stick, a toothpick, and it may heat up enough to possibly catch fire, but uh, you put a piece of aluminum in there, and you've got all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the I listened to an interview with a one of the guys who was the uh, head of the fire department on in California, in up in the Paradise area, and he said he'd been there. He retired, had been there 30 years, and he said he had never seen anything like it. He said all sorts of wildfires and brush fires and forest fires, um, but he said the trees were burned from the inside out with the leaves and the bark still on them. And he said when this stuff,
Mm.
when these beams were hitting them, uh, and he didn't claim to be an expert on the technologies involved, but what he was saying is when these beams hit, they literally hollowed out the entire root system, and the tree fell over because the roots were no longer holding it in place. And he said, you almost have to have a way to ground this stuff. And so we know that aluminum oxide is one of the components of the chemtrails that they've been spraying for 25 or 30 years, you know. Um, but as this stuff collects on the soil, uh, it and gets into the water too. uh, One of the bad things about aluminum is there's a direct correlation between aluminum and dementia and Alzheimer's.
Right.
Uh, but when it gets into the soil, the aluminum oxide uh, has the effect of blocking the uh, plant's ability to absorb nutrients from the soil. So it's like everything that is going on from the powers that be is working against humanity as a whole. And of course,
Right.
we know that we've heard the global depopulation plan. We, you know, the
I'm sorry.
do I need to
The
cut it? Or?
conversation going to, Misty's going to Judy chop somebody. Peyton showed me that video. Y'all, I want to tell you an interesting story. Don told me about the chemtrails and all that, and I started noticing. I called him one day. God, I don't even know. It was years ago. I called him. I said, Don, I just saw this one trail that was going across close to Cornersville Highway, and I just saw this plane come through, and it made a cross right over the top of me. And I didn't take a picture. I was telling telling him where telling him where it was at, where it crossed the uh, Cornersville Highway there, and I was going to work. And I worked at night, and during we had a lot of stuff happen while I was in that plant for 12 hours. And one thing that happened, I was working and I heard something land behind me, and there was hail about the size, not about the size of a quarter, that was coming through some of the vents and landed in the floor behind me. And they didn't even tell us that there was an issue. But when I got it the next morning, when I went out to get in my truck, and I got home, and I checked Facebook like the morning paper, there was a tornado crossing Cornersville Highway and almost the exact spot that those where that cross was at. I'm not saying that they could place it there, but it was odd. But I'm glad I called him the day before and told him, And then we had some horrible weather that night. But yeah, there was a picture, and it was right there close to where I was at. But yeah, I don't.
Well,
I
we
need.
could get into we could get into HARP and weather modification, weather control systems. But HARP has the ability to heat up the upper atmosphere. And somebody may want to correct me if they looked into it, but it seemed like to me that when the HARP array is turned on, it sends up something like 1,000,000 kilowatts of heat, uh, like a microwave, up into the upper atmosphere, and that creates a high pressure system. And the high pressure system then can direct the jet stream. And then if you add cloud seeding to that, there's this weather manipulation could have been used for our benefit, but it can also be used against us too. It's like any technology, it's like a gun, it could be used for good things or bad things.
Yeah.
Uh, but hopefully the awakening is going to put an end to all of this. Just the question is how long and how bad it's going to be in the meantime.
And you know what? So we talk about everything being connected and I believe it, y'all. We haven't even begun to talk about, and I know y'all have stories too, but everything happening for a reason. I might have accidentally messed this up tonight, so this group right here could be the only ones that were here. You know what I mean? Like if I'd had this group here is kind of on the same page, and I mean it was an accident, but sometimes accidents happen for a reason. Yeah, I got to hear the backstory on Greg. Does Misty have a booger out back or something that she's trying to catch on tape? Or I'm kind of scared to ask because she has a lot of different stories. Paranormal, Rex, yes. Or is that, I don't know if he was answering me or not. But yeah, yes. Greg said yes. Well, you know, it's I hope she's not going out there by herself. I know she's carrying a hog leg with her, but I mean, you can. She's and she don't have a holster. I did learn that. But yeah, I would I know we could go on. I put on the original one. You know, we're going to test StreamYard out, which didn't go over, and then if it works out, we might talk till next Tuesday. Man, yeah, I we used to go out in the woods all the time, you know, when I was younger, but um, there's there's no telling. I wouldn't do it. We do it now, but we sit in the truck most of the time at night. Now we had the fire rolling. We were outside in this location that we never had done that before, and probably nobody had done it ever. And we had that's why I was asking about what a juvenile sounds like. It sounded male, but it was high pitched, and it sounded like it was almost trying to do the long howl, but it was too high pitched and young, maybe. So that's why I've been trying to ask folks. We we just didn't have the recorder on. I think I'm gonna go buy a. No, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go buy a recorder that I can download to a computer or whatever. That and just take it out there one night and leave it and go and then come back the next morning. But leave it some horse feed. Didn't you have a guy that caught one stealing his horse feed?
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, actually, three different people had talked about it. The folks down on Highway 64 that we interviewed, that's the first time they saw it. It came out of their feed room, and she went in and uh, found it eaten about half of their horse feed that they had in the barrel. And then Charlie had the same thing. He kept missing horse feed and didn't have any neighbors around that he thought might be stealing it. And uh, I don't know. It seemed like somebody took some flour and sprinkled it on the uh, in the tack room or the feed room and got some footprints off of it. I think it was Charlie, but I'll have to be a little more positive about that
yeah. I mean,
sometime later.
you know, with
So,
you being a game warden at the time, I imagine you heard all kind of crazy stuff. But oh man, y'all, I had a long day today, and I'm getting a little bit hitting the wall, I think. But I appreciate y'all coming in here when I screwed things up. I'm gonna have to try to figure this out. I may get some of y'all to try to come with me if you get time, and I might have to call get some advice too. It would be easier if I had a laptop. Doing it on the phone kind of tough. But now I've got to go delete the three places I put this link up. I think Woodwalkers. Let's see, my page and Mafia in the Holler. I think. But congratulations to Woodwalkers for hitting 1,000 subscribers today.
yep.
I know some of them are here. Spencer, he's probably got to work tomorrow. I guess he was in here for a little bit. they, yeah, it's seeing there's so much stuff going on. Like I had one of the family members, like, what, well, we've had this land for 30 something years and we've never heard anything or seen anything. I'm like, have you ever hunted? Which I knew the answer to this question before I asked, you ever hunted? No. Never hunted, done any hunting, fished? Nope. Um, you ever been out at your property at midnight? Nope, never. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, because that's when the activity, especially when the leaves are off the trees. Greg, Misty, any of you guys, Flat Rock, do y'all notice more activity in the cooler months? Because we had more activity when the leaves were off the trees, and with the one orb, and then especially, and then me and Peyton went to it's hard to go this time of year because Don can tell you how copperhead and rattlesnakey these places are, and it scares me. And so we actually went. There was a deer carcass found by somebody that was bush hogging, but it had already been dead. So we went to see if there was any evidence of broken legs or whatever. Don, I did find out that leg bone was intact. Peyton did; he was paying attention. It was a small buck. It's in velvet. Um, don't know what killed it, but there's hardly any bones. There's no hair. The only thing that had any meat left on it was the pelvic area where there was inside, where just something couldn't get. It was a little bit reddish. Uh, look, could have been a week or two old, but something, something
Could have
killed
been, yeah, could have been one of those big cats that took it down and ate his fill, and then the coyotes came in there
it.
and cleaned it up.
And spread it out a little bit,
Yeah,
but something I don't know. I've seen kill spots. I've seen where stuff had died from a gunshot or an arrow and laid there, and the critters did their thing. This was weird because the skull was torn apart. The bottom part of the skull, the top part of the skull was there with the little antlers, but there's no saw marks. Then there was right mandible. There was a couple of little bones. I'm not sure where they came from. Maybe not sure where they came from. They're real little, small and thin. There was a part of a femur, if they have femurs, the thickest bone in the leg.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
there was no hair, there was no hide, and it's something. Of course, it was about 15 yards from one little bitty pile of bones to the next. So I just didn't find it. Just it was different. I don't know how to put it.
Well, that leg bone was not broken.
No, it was intact. No, it was gone from the joint. The rest of it was missing from the joint part, so it could have been torn loose or whatever. But
Yeah.
it was kind of strange. But what it did give us opportunity to do was go to where we had seen that bluish white light. Me and Peyton had seen,
Mhm,
and we went over in the
mhm.
edge of those woods and looked, and there's absolutely no way in hell somebody was over there in the pitch ass dark, midnight, because we couldn't have in the daylight walked through there without hurting ourselves. Probably you had the bushes and the thorns and the rocks and the crevices and just the thick stick. And if you were over there, with a cell phone light, you would have been you'd have been in trouble. I mean, nobody's going to do that. I mean, I don't know who would have even thought about doing that, but we had to make sure. We wanted to go in there. I will go in there when it gets colder, but I'm not stepping off in there. I could just see in my mind all of those them little baby copperheads, and I don't want to get hit on the Achilles by one of them little bastards. But yeah, it scares me. But
Well, that
I saw your answer, Greg. Thank you. Was and see we have family members that hunt this particular place, so we can't really go from hunting date opening season to January. I could, but I don't want to mess their hunting up. Of course, they're one they've never seen anything or heard anything. I think it's kind of scaring them that we're talking about it. But creepiest thing I've seen was us having a deer stolen, then the carcass brought back down and thrown out into the field, picked clean 2 days later. you know, Greg, y'all were telling stories, and when you hear stories, it carries you back to things that happened. The only time I've ever lost a deer in plain sight, I I shot this deer. It was a nice, decent 8 pointer, and there was a little hill there, and I peeked around that hill, and he fell down, and he's doing the death breathing. He's done, but I backed back over out of sight so I wouldn't spook him and have him run off, and then I didn't want to chase him, so I sat over there and waited. I don't know, 15 minutes probably, and I walked over the little rise, and I went right to the spot where I last saw him, and he never found
Wasn't there?
never found him. Didn't have any blood from that spot on. There was blood to where he laid down, um, but I do know this. I do know that sometimes you can shoot them and they'll be shocked. That, and then that blood can clot pretty quick sometimes if it's not a mortal wound. But possibly that, and that's what I always thought. Maybe it laid down, got its bearings, and got up and limped off. And because I have seen where I've tracked deer for people before and see a clot break loose, like not find any blood, but you kind of know what direction they're heading, and have one spot person stay at that spot, and then somebody else go and look, and then a clot will break loose, and then they'll start bleeding again. I've seen them, jump fences or and stuff like that and break them loose. Didn't find that, so I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what happened, but when you hear stories like Greg's, it's like, wait a minute, I had something similar happen, but I don't know. But what? So, Mr. Don, if you had to pick a location that you would recommend anywhere in East or Middle Tennessee, that would be your pick as somewhere I should go check out a booger or dogman, and where would you recommend? Daggum.
That's a hard question, isn't it? That's
Well, it, the thing is, um, a lot of this has changed. Where used to we had big farms, but like when Saturn come in and people started lotting off these 300 acres and 500 acres and 700 acres into 5 acres, and putting houses on them. Um, there's a I don't know. I mean, Greg said it has 6 deer stolen last 11 seasons, dead, not wounded. We couldn't find. Damn. But
getting back to Misty's question. That of course LBL is seems to be kind of a hot spot. The Bankhead National Forest down there in North Alabama. That some of those guys have had experiences with. But as far as I guess you could come down and visit with Roger, and he could take you to the spot where he's been seeing them or seeing signs. Let's put it that way.
and
Uh,
the bad thing about the two places where we go, one of them I barely have permission, and the other one's so private that um, I I don't know if they let me bring anybody on, because they're kind of getting a little tired of us talking about hearing and seeing stuff, and kind of scaring the family. And so it's hard. I mean, you've got people that I know. I tell you one I want to go to, and check out a little more, the Yanali game or preserve. Sorry, yeah, it's just we don't have a huge national forest here like Greg and those guys do. Um, but this Yanali, is it 13,000 acres, Don, split up, something like that?
Yeah, yeah, roughly,
So there's
roughly.
different. I need to get some maps, and if I'll tell y'all this, if me and Peyton can get out there, and we've heard some stories, yeah, that's and yeah,
That's
me,
Richard's territory out there. Yep.
yeah, and so if we can get out there and find evidence, y'all be the first ones I'll tell because we have sat there at night. It's not far from where we're having the stuff happen.
Right.
Other place. I mean, as a crow flies, what is it? 2 miles, 3 miles, maybe
Oh yeah. Yeah.
some of it. So and it's along the Duck River. You can Google the Duck River, and there's land along there. There's a lot of creepy history here too. We talked about that the other night. But we have heard. We pulled up there in the evening a couple weeks ago, just checking it out, and we parked. I pulled up in the woods a little bit and parked. And this is not me. Heather, my wife, she said, she turned and looked at me. She said, "You hear that?" I said, "No." She said, "I just heard a tree knock." Like she was shocked. I'm like, "Where was it?" And she pointed down the hill. Well, this tree knock would happen two more times, and it moved. It was different. It was going along. So I got something I need to ask Greg. Any of y'all that have had experiences, I had an idea the other day, maybe totally wrong. I've shared it with Don. So me and Peyton have heard a tree pushed over, and it was obviously half dead, three quarters dead, or whatever. I've been sent audio of tree knocks from reputable people, and then a tree being pushed over is on the audio. It happened in North Carolina. Um, so let me run this by y'all. So what if the tree knocks are two different things? And what I mean by that, maybe it is a communication thing, but what if they're like we thump watermelons to see if they're ripe? We know that uh, insects, birds, small mammals, live in some of these hollowed out trees. What if they're kind of testing the tree to see if it's maybe hollow? Because I've heard people talk about and I've heard this the thud of a good green stick on a tree that's maybe half dead. So Mike finally made it. Yeah, we had a catastrophe early on, and I hit the wrong button, and we oh we had to do this one. But yeah, so what do y'all think about if they're checking? Because Mike, I'm glad you showed up at the right time. Because Mike was talking about the one he saw when he first saw it was digging in the dirt, and maybe it was looking for roots or bugs or whatever. And that got me to thinking about what if they push some of these half dead trees down to get the um, the bug,
Grub,
yeah,
whatnot. Yeah.
bugs and the coon and stuff. Mike, I tried to give StreamYard a shot and it just didn't work out tonight. I'm gonna have to go tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow. I'm gonna have to do some studying. And what we do about 7 minutes on that other link before we kicked ourselves out. But anybody have any thoughts on them maybe pushing half dead trees down to find food? Now I may be totally off on that, but oh me, I know I got most of the wood knocks here will get an answer knocked back to it. As far as tree pushed over, possibly get food. Yeah, and I just because we had that one pushed over. Well, I say pushed over. It fell, but it fell weird. It didn't. The roots wasn't snapping. And it takes a lot to, and there was no wind, so that ruled all that out. Just odd timing. Um, Gecko eats skin, sedges, trace. What if Bigfoot do the same if it's somewhere and have to worry about being found? Just saying.
Interesting. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and like Mike says, a lot of times we're just speculating, but I think um, just kicking ideas off, bouncing ideas off of each other. Um, I don't know what made me think of that. Yeah, yeah. But y'all, this was a nice, quaint, small crowd, and I enjoy it because you get more interaction. Um, Maybe one of these days we can have more people in here. Don, I appreciate you coming in here. We could y'all we've talked 4 hours before, or even longer than that. So I know he's had conversations before. It started about 8 o'clock at night and lasted the sun come up. Well, yeah, thank you. I'll do practice round. What happened? I set it up, and then it said let StreamYard handle your YouTube. And Don, I sent you that link, and it come up StreamYard, but I wasn't sure if that was right or not. So we'll have to.
Yeah, the first link was. Yeah.
Yeah, but see, it was just StreamYard, and it didn't have nothing to do with the channel, connected to the channel. So in about 10 days, what day would that be? Would it be a week next 2 weekends from now, maybe? Oh, so once you link it to YouTube, you have to wait 24 hours. That's what it is, then. That's what it is. Cause yeah, I did it today at work while I was on break. All right, thank you, Mike. Greg the 16th. Okay, let me. I'll have to look at them. I was going to say look at a map. What the hell? A calendar. I'm tired. Um, September 16th. Trying to think. Okay, well that makes me feel better because that's what it was. I didn't give it enough time. Maybe tomorrow sometime it'll be hooked up. Thank you, Misty. All right, Greg. Hey Misty. Will you give Greg my phone number, please? Mr.
Looks
Hughes.
like most of these folks know each other. Y'all are a fun bunch.
Oh
I've
yeah.
enjoyed reading the chat along with it.
See, and that's one of the other day when we had that show. Who was it? Me and Bob Dahl. And I had drank a couple beers. I can't drink that much anymore, and I got to feeling goofy, and I was begging somebody to go live so I could get in the chat with them. But they all had plans. Thank you, David Hughes. Always nice to see you. I appreciate you coming in. Billy, thank you. Um, I'm glad it was. I mean, like I said, this with the stuff we talked about tonight. I might not have another show because I might get banned from YouTube. But that's fine. That's fine. We'll just start another page. So if y'all have a weird looking name pop up with my picture, y'all know it's me undercover. Oh yeah, but the thing about this bunch, my Don, is they're just like all of us. you know,
Oh, I
the
know.
the group at the store, how we all got how we would argue with each other and cuss each other, and never, and people think we hated it, but nobody. Rex, thank you very much. I was looking forward to it, and God, I hate I messed up the thing. If I'm not banned yet, you. If you'd been here earlier, yeah. And see, the thing is, you got people that are, and I'm sure it's not just this group, but because there's a lot more people in this group actually. Every time you watch a show, they get the same people. Everybody's kind of drawn, you know, and, and I would like to find a place that I had signal where I could go live, like Mike did a couple of interviews with people that were out in the woods. had a fire going or whatever. That was really interesting. And maybe do a chat by the fire and have two or three people on around their own fire, or whatever. And or if we ever get to have a meetup, uh, go live on somebody's channel and just leave it. Maybe somebody monitor them. Just sit around and tell stories to each other. Because we've all held back. You know. um, oh, it said there was a problem with the server, so I think my chat just crashed, y'all. I think he's
You're
trying to.
you're still here. I still see you. Yeah.
I'm here, but the chat. Hold on, let me retry. Oh, it came back. Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank y'all. Now we'll have to go explain what happened to the people that tried to get in and we weren't there.
Well, maybe we'll be more technically up to date next time around.
Yeah, that's my fault. But I I
Yeah.
really I really would uh like to turn cameras on and have fireside chats maybe when we do get together. And you know how people get more relaxed, and when somebody, you know, if Miss Wanda, she tells a story about Greg and it might remind somebody else a story, and that's just how that's the fun way to do it. Flat Rock's been quiet. I appreciate you sending me the audio. I haven't heard back from that guy yet. He's pretty busy, but he'll listen to it. I wanted him to hear the the difference in the big ones. We know, which I know how they sound, but I never had that experience with juveniles. I um appreciate y'all, like when I feel like I can ask y'all questions, and y'all you're way more experienced than me, and some of y'all living with them and all. All right, thank you, Don. I appreciate it. Um,
Enjoyed it. Got a good group there.
yeah, and I know we always say tip of the iceberg, but you know, hey, Squatchy Mountain Mom, we're having people that are coming in. We got more people in chat now than we've had the whole time. They're probably just in the link to the new ones. And Big Chief got to show out. Oh, yeah. Well, hey, Squatchy Mountain Mama, this is YouTube live. So in about 24 hours, this one will be available to watch. Uh, Mike just informed me that I set up the StreamYard today and hooked it up to YouTube. He says it takes about 24 hours, so that's where I messed up. And maybe tomorrow it'll be ready to go, and we'll get this thing rocking and rolling. But yeah, check in tomorrow during the day, and I'll set it to when it does come up. I'll set it to where everybody can watch it. But yeah, Don, hey, y'all, I cut Don off a couple times because there's a whole lot of information, and I have a feeling he's going to be on more shows if he wants to. So, and
Well, I don't know what hey, I don't know what we touched on, but listen, just for everybody's knowledge, I ain't thinking about committing suicide. So if I disappear, it'll be something.
yeah,
But well,
if we
I'm
go
a,
miss,
I'm a,
if we go missing, just we
right,
appreciate y'all.
right.
All right,
Well,
see
good
y'all.
night, y'all. Enjoyed it.
Yep, y'all have a good night. If anybody's going live, let me know right now, and we'll jump over there. We need to do all right before I get off here. We need to set up a day, some holiday or something where nobody's doing anything, and each show needs to do about an hour, and we'll channel hop all day long, or not all day long, for a few hours. Go from one to another, and and there might be some drinks involved, maybe. All right, thank y'all. We'll see you later.
Good night, everybody.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.